Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Just going to hold for a minute while we get everybody logged in. And okay, it looks like we have a lot of people already joining really quickly. Okay, so I'll get a few notes together for you guys and then we will get started. So, for anyone who's new, welcome. This is a Zoom meeting rather than a regular webinar. So, if you have, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I have a 10-week old baby. I'm so tired. Okay. This is a Zoom webinar, not a Zoom meeting. So if you have a question during the class, you're going to type your questions into the Q&A box or the chat since we can't actually speak with you, and I'll be relaying those questions to Peg. We are recording this class today. We'll be sending out an email tomorrow to anybody. If you have to leave early or you want to revisit the class, you'll get an email with the link tomorrow. And you can always visit our YouTube page. The recording usually goes up about 24 hours following the class, so it will be available on our YouTube page tomorrow afternoon. If you are attending from somewhere other than Virginia, just a note, we are gearing our classes towards our local area, which is Gardening Zone 7. So if you're attending from California, Florida, New York, wherever, just keep in mind that your plants may be a little bit different from what are discussed here. Peg, quick introduction. I'm sorry, I'm so sleepy. um, Peg works at our Fair Oaks store, and she has many years of experience as an instructor and designer. And today she's got a new class for us, so I've been looking forward to this one. And Peg, I'm going to turn it over to you because I think I need to
Okay,
stop
thank you.
talking.
And I appreciate all that she's saying. Now, little James is 3 months.
He is just 3 months, yes.
Okay, just bear in mind, darling, it's worth it.
Yes.
When you're tired and you're whatever, just say, whoa, these early moments go by very quickly and
Yeah.
appreciate it. So having had four of mine, 12 grandchildren, and now four beautiful great grandchildren, I certainly understand the circumstances.
Thank you, Peg.
Absolutely. And welcome to the class today. It's going to be a little different than anything I've done in the past. And so I hope that you will let Sally know how you felt about it. And we all grow from learning curves from people and feedback, and this is a wonderful way to get it. Okay. So, actually, the intention today is to encourage you to think about using plants from your garden through the seasons. And so, what I'm going to do is not do all these arrangements, but show you pictures of some of them through the seasons and tell you a little bit about the mechanics. But as much as that, what can you plant in your garden or what can you use in your garden that you can also use in your home? So, that being said, let's begin, Danny, with the first picture, okay? And among the very first things that I bring into the house are those early bloomers that can start in late December and certainly into January and going into February. So the spikes that are coming out of this is witch hazel, which puts on a great show, uh, usually in January and February, okay? And that is the line material that's used in this arrangement. Included in the body of that is a lot of hellebores. And I am an advocate of hellebores because I have a lot of it over a period of time. It's very promiscuous, so it seeds all over the place, and it's a ground cover for me because I've got a lot of area to have ground cover. And I rarely have to weed in the areas where I grow it as a ground cover. But it is a marvelous cut flower also. Included are the little snowdrops that are in that come into bloom in January, and a couple of different varieties, so they bloom throughout the month of January, and they're fantastic. Love them all. So basically, that particular arrangement, I had back to me, sweetie. I have used a product called Oasis. Okay. I don't use Oasis for everything because some of the stems don't go down into this easily. But you wet it thoroughly and then make it fit into your container. And then the line material is put in and then the filler. Okay. Let's go to the next one here. And I'm actually showing you in this picture the ground cover that has become established over a period of time. Now, when I said that this plant is promiscuous, I know that some people don't like that it reseeds, but I personally do. This is an area now that is so covered with the helleborus that I rarely have to pull a weed out of it, okay? And the only thing that helleborus needs, and you don't even always have to do that, is after, well, let's say the beginning of January, before the new stems come up to bloom, if you cut away the old leaves, which are basically evergreen, then it's neater and tidier. And that's really all you have to do for helleborus, okay? So we'll move on to the next picture. So the next thing that comes into bloom in the garden that I'm likely to use in the house are the daffodils and the tulips. In this particular picture, it happens to be various varieties of daffodils. The line material in this is Japanese maple, and it has just begun to leaf out in this situation. So it's leafing out early. I'm going to say this is probably March when I did this arrangement, okay? Yes, it is late March probably, because also some of the line material in that is also the deciduous magnolia. I think it's Magnolia Elizabeth, which I've had for many years, and it is really big and really beautiful. Louis and I will be doing an in-house program on Saturday at 10, and we'll be talking about fall color. This deciduous magnolia, and most of them, are valued because they have great structure. They are beautiful when they bloom in the spring. They are wonderful in arrangements. And then in the fall, they turn a magnificent yellow, golden yellow. So those are some advantages of that. Japanese maple is incredible in all seasons. I have many of those in different varieties and I love it. Now, where the daffodils are concerned, those things do not go into Oasis well, okay? And so I use a different technique, and let's come back to me. There is tape, and there's also a variety that is clear. This one happens to be green, and it's very sticky on one side. And I always fold it back so that I don't have trouble finding the end. This is a tiny pot, okay? And I've done a crisscross method here. And this is how I do it. I don't want it to be too long. I want it to be secure, but I don't want it to be too long because I don't want to have trouble hiding it, okay? You don't want to see that when you're finished. So this is what I do. Now, you don't want to put so many in there that you're going to have difficulty getting the stems in. You won't have just enough that you've got a little control. So while I normally put my filler in second and do my line material first, with this one, to stabilize that line material, I will go ahead and put some of those daffodils in so that I can brace that line material against it, okay? So that's the method that I used to do that particular arrangement. Now, when you are using daffodils, you want to put those into some barely warm water. We want to say lukewarm water if you wish, and let them sit for a couple of hours because the oozing from those is detrimental to some of the other plants that you put in with it, the other flowers. So you want that to kind of drain out a little bit before you use it in a mixed arrangement, okay? So let's see what's coming up next, okay? Slightly different now. I have used in this one a pin holder in addition to some of that crossing with that tape. So this is Japanese maple. It is my line material. And if we come back to me, I will show you there are available pin holders in different sizes and shapes, and they will last forever. You can have your children inherit it, as a matter of fact. They're wonderful, they're heavy, and I frequently use these. I use Oasis a good bit, but I love to use this, and I love to use the tape because it's easier for a lot of these plants to absorb the water from it. Let's go to the next one, Danny. Okay. Now, this again is using something in a basket. You could put it on the front door if you wanted to, but it's fresh and it would dust around if you did that, okay? And I have used tulips in this also. The line material here is forsythia. And what I did with this was put a, a container down into that basket that holds water and then fed those stems into it and filled in with the tulips and the daffodils. Let's go on to the next one, Danny. Okay, where do I grow these things? In a lot of different areas. Yes, you're sitting in this picture, the beginning of azaleas, and they're fun to bring in and use in arrangements. You see a lot of the large daffodils here in a row in the center of this bed, and they're in the center of that bed for a reason. You enjoy those blooms. They're delightful. They last maybe 3, maybe a little more weeks. And then you've got a lot of brown stems to deal with. And you kind of have a love-hate relationship with that because you have to let that green mature so that you have a good bulb the next season. By putting it in the center of a bed, whether it be in a clump or be in a row, when you plant things around it or in it, it will hide that foliage when it turns yellow and is no longer attractive. Also, that you can't see very well. There's a lot of ground cover things there. There's fern. Ferns are beautiful in arrangement if they're conditioned well, brought in conditioning. You bring these flowers in. I love to cut them in the early morning. It's best that way. They're hydrated then. And put them into most of it into lukewarm water and let them sit for an hour or two to absorb as much water as possible. So the ferns are good. There's also a woodland phlox, which is native, by the way, that can also be used. And there are a few miniature daffodils in here, which I absolutely love because you're not fighting as much with the foliage when they are maturing. Okay, let's go to the next one. I love the astilbe, and I love the hydrangea. And we have so many varieties of hydrangea today. This one is what we call the mop hydrangea, and it's subject to late frosts. And so I cover mine so that I don't lose it, okay? Used a lot of mine in a granddaughter's wedding a few years back, and I had to protect it with frost cloth. That meant, okay, I had some frost and the leaves are coming out. I have to wrap it. Otherwise, you may lose that bloom. And the other aggravation is deer, and Bob-X is my solution to spray for that. But I absolutely love the hydrangea. And that hydrangea is complemented by the astilbe, which normally the deer don't eat in my garden. They certainly can. It's difficult to guarantee anything from the deer because it depends upon how hungry they are, okay? But normally they don't eat the astilbe. And I have several varieties, and so I get a long period of bloom, and it's wonderful in arrangements. So I highly recommend the hydrangea in arrangements and the astilbe. Going to the next picture. This is, I include clumps of astilbe. It'll take full sun, but if it's in full sun, you have to be sure it has enough water during dry periods because it does not like dry soil. Not constantly wet, but moisture. And it works beautifully with the hosta and the ferns and the other thing in part shade and in front of azaleas. Okay, wonderful, wonderful plant. Lots and lots of different varieties. Okay, let's move along. Let's talk about tulips. We need to talk a lot about bulbs right now because tis the season. The sooner you get them in the ground, the better. I know that people do say, oh, wait and plant your tulips a little later. Buy your tulips and get them in the ground. It's beautiful out there right now. Hopefully we'll get some rain this evening, tomorrow morning, because we need rain badly. Certainly in my house we do. But I have been planting a number of tulips. I'll knock on some wood. I've never had them come up and bloom or be disturbed by planting them in early October even, okay? So I usually plant a row at the end of my little vegetable garden, and it's there primarily for cutting because I love to bring these things in the house, and they have a long period of bloom, okay? Now, when I'm working with the tulips and the daffodils, I don't normally use the oasis. I try to use the tape or to use a piece of chicken wire over it or the pin holder so that those stems will go in easily. They don't go into oasis really easy. Tulips do, but not the narcissus, okay? And let's go to the next one. Okay, I've been teaching and I did a program last Saturday here on bulbs and particularly in containers. So I grow a lot. If you don't have a whole lot of space, you could certainly grow these tulips in containers. And you may not choose to bring them inside, cutting them and so forth, but you can plant them very thickly and know that you're going to be using them for that, and it's okay. But now's the time to do that kind of thing, okay? Let's move to the next one. Okay, here's another bulb. Fantastic. And underplanted, that is perfect in arrangements. And it's Dutch iris. This iris is a true bulb. And there's also Veronica, which is a perennial, and a long blooming perennial with a lot of these, including Veronica. When that first flush is finished, you cut those old blooms off, and it will flush out again. So you get a lot out of it. And I love planting enough of this Dutch iris that I can bring some inside. Now, another fun thing is I've collected a lot of containers over the years because I do a lot of arranging. And it's nice when you can coordinate things. I like this little container, which came from the greenhouse here, and it has a little bit of blue in it, which is a color pick up with the iris. Now, let's go on to the next one, which is this one became a really fun thing for me. Again, a bulb which should go into the ground now or as soon as you can get around to it. What you are seeing there primarily are allium, the large allium. And there's 2 or 3 different varieties of allium in that container. And the 4th of July was coming up, and I was walking through the garden, and I thought to myself, oh, that kind of looks like fireworks exploding. And so I brought it into the house and thought, now what can I do with this? And I had some beautiful lilies in bloom, which can be planted now or planted when we get them in January and February because they're perennial and they're very hardy. Okay. So in this arrangement are the dried, this was an all fresh arrangement. It was made with water in it. Okay. And it was probably made, as I remember, in the oasis because those stems did go down into the oasis. I used the lilies as focal point. I used some hydrangea, the paniculata hydrangea, which is different than the mock one, okay? And not subject to lake frost, which is nice. It's a greenish kind of color. And so I used some of that. And then I used the little ornamental grass, which is perennial, Haconocloa. Okay, what I'm going to do now, Danny, is bring that forward, okay? I think I can do this. Okay. I set this aside and let it dry. And it just seems like that allium is fragile. It isn't fragile. And so in this area, there's one that's called Schuberti, and these are other various larger allium. And the hydrangea did dry. So I just thought, and also the grass, which is a contrast there. And to carry out that theme in July, I just used some ribbon. Okay. So now it's dry, but I wanted to share what you can do with these allium. Now, during this period of time, let's see if I can reach this. I also used, and think about what you can use. I love cannas. And most of the time, canna lilies will overwinter in the ground here. If we happen to have a severe winter, not so. But I've discovered that if I put a mulch bag filled with mulch, don't open it up, on top of that, and you can cover it with mulch then, it will keep the ground warm enough to overwinter the cannas and also those new colocaceae. But I used this in this arrangement also. So it was really quite attractive. So it's amazing what you can use from your own garden. Okay. Now, I brought this up. This is the allium schuberti, and this is a giant allium gladiator, but there's several different varieties. Okay. And as I said, get these things in the ground. I like to sometimes plant them in clumps. Just wonderful. Time to do that now. And that gives you a long season of using things that you could cut and bring into the garden. There are some people that actually spray these after they go brown with a little purple spray, and they look like they're in bloom all season. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. There are also some people who spray them gold or silver or platinum and use them in their Christmas tree. So let's show everybody where I plant some of these things, okay? And of that, here's another bed. I have a few more beds than I take care of well enough these days. I do get help now and then, but I don't have a gardener. And it's a large space. But while I have a large space, bear in mind that if you see something that you like, you can use those things in a small space. This is not a huge bed. It's backed by a lot of different shrubs and azaleas. And I grow a lot of things from seed. This foxglove, the tall spikes that you see there, are biennials. So you plant those in the fall, they begin to grow, they live over the winter, and they bloom in the spring, in the late spring. And you can see in front where the gold is, that is a type of carex, and it is evergreen. And just between those is the drying inflorescence of the Schuberti allium. Okay, so this is a fun thing to do. Fun, fun, fun. Just get them in the ground. Okay, and the next one is peonies, and they are simply pushed into that water in a deep vase without benefit of any tape or oasis or anything like that, and just massed in. And I used the two containers, antique containers, by the way, to complement one another. The bearded iris and the peonies are what we think of as the queens of the garden. They don't have a long period of bloom, and so I suggest you pull a chair up and enjoy them or bring them in the house, because these peonies will last days in an arrangement. And they can be anywhere within the garden because the foliage is attractive until late in the season. Right now, some of them have some powdery mildew on it. Don't worry about that. This is the season to go out and cut that peony foliage all the way to the ground and put it in the trash can. You don't want to put it in the compost pile because you don't want to spread that powdery mildew around. And the next picture is of the lilies, the hardy lilies. Now, here again, the deer don't eat that peony, don't eat peonies, but they will devour these beautiful lilies. And there's nothing more disappointing than having that big stalk come up and those buds form and go out the next morning and find that those buds are gone. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit hopefully about using a product called Bobex and spraying, but you have to be consistent with it. But oh my, these are lovely. And in the next picture, I use a lot of yarrow, which dries beautifully, by the way. If you all enjoy this kind of program, I hope we'll do more in the winter months about drying flowers and being able to use. I did not include those in today because I just didn't have time. But yarrow, if you pick it in its prime, dries beautifully. So there's yarrow in here. There's also spikes of lavender in here. And that's another one that dries beautifully and smells so wonderful, right? There's also the tall Verbena bonariensis in here, and it seeds itself about, but it is not obnoxious. It's really easy to pull up, okay? And this is a good time to get it established. And when it dries, if you shake those seeds around, you'll get lots of babies. It dries well also. There's a tiny little flower in there with a little greenish center that's called a matricaria or feverfew. And that is another one that seeds around quite a bit and puts on quite a show off and on throughout the season. Some of the accents in here are the little shrub roses, and that's a little white shrub rose that go in as a little group, okay? And coming out from the front, the greens that are the basis for this arrangement is actually the berries of a cedar, the native Virginia cedar. Okay, let's move along. I've got a lot to cover here, so I have to go quickly. All right, just had fun because I grow a lot of vegetables. I grow a lot of herbs. Well, I won't say a lot because I don't have a lot of sun. But I do grow peppers and tomatoes and squash and some of those things. And I wanted to feature those along with a lot of herbs. And so I chose two interesting containers, similar but different shapes. And I used the taping method on this. And in that, the spikes coming out of it are actually dill seeds. I love growing dill. It doesn't do well in the hottest part of the summer, but it does beautifully in the spring and again in the fall. And I love it particularly on fresh salmon. Oh my goodness, yes. So that is the spikes that is coming out of this. And then you have a lot of marigolds. Marigolds are edible. Not that I want to eat them, okay? But they are great to decorate things with, your dishes with. And I grow these all organically anyway, so it's fine. So primarily that's what's in those. I put also, because I love the cherry tomatoes, I also have some stems of those in the arrangement, and then the pickup of an accessory of vegetables. So that was a fun thing for me to do. And going to the next one, please. Who can live without zinnias? If you've got some sunshine, you must grow some zinnias. And they're wonderful to grow from seed. And the time to seed those is actually early May. You want the ground to have begun to warm up a little bit, and then you put some of those seeds in. And these are the taller growing varieties that we often don't get in plants, okay? Sometimes we do the state fair, so check with us on that and put them in the ground. I do start some from seed inside, but you have to be careful that they don't get too leggy and you don't start them too soon because these zinnias want that ground to be warmed up a little bit. So May is the ideal time for that. Also, there's Queen Anne's lace in here. We used to sell plants of Queen Anne's lace. I'm not sure that we do anymore because it's definitely a perennial and it definitely seeds all over the place. It is a wonderful roadside plant. It's a great thing to include in a habitat garden for the birds, bees, and butterflies, the pollinators. I love it. I just simply pull up the ones I don't want, okay? So in this arrangement are predominantly zinnias. There are a few sunflowers, which I grow from seed. Plus, we do get these sunflowers now in the spring, in late April and May. So I love to put a few of the plants in to get me an early start, and then also to use the seeds in addition to that. So this is an arrangement that will last for quite some period of time. And I remember, I believe that I used the tape across the top of that container, okay? Now, coming back to me for a moment. When we talk about using this tape on the top of the container, you can do that. This is fine. This is a glass tape. It works fine. And on most things, it works fine. Do not use it on fine china. I intended to bring the sweetest little teacup that to put an arrangement in. You would not want to use this on that. Anything with a silver rim or a gold rim or embellished around the sides, because this might pull that off. So don't use that. Go for it. I could actually get away with just putting a small piece of oasis down in here and putting a small arrangement into that. Okay. All righty. let's see where we have things planted to support that kind of an arrangement or any other kind of arrangement. This is not in my garden. This actually is in the garden here at Fair Oaks in the front of the store. And it has a lot of fun things in it that can be used for arranging. And these things also have a long period of bloom, and all of them are perennials, okay? In the very front of this picture, and just going out of bloom, is Nepeta or catmint. It's just going out of bloom. And it's time for it to get sheared back by about 1/3. And then it will come out quickly and bloom again. Sometimes you can get 3 periods of bloom out of this. You can also use those blooms in arranging. Next to that is a different kind of little allium that you'll find most often in the perennial section, growing in the summertime. It blooms in the summer, and it likewise can be used. It's small. Each of those little heads are only probably 1.5 inches across, and they can be used in arrangements also. And these are all perennials. And in the center, the big pink one that you see is the coneflower, which are wonderful for arrangements. Long period of bloom, deadhead until this time of the year. Stop deadheading. Let those seed heads mature, and the finches particularly love them. The purple that you see, the sprays, are Perovskia. And that too makes a good cut flower arrangement. And using it as cut flowers periodically cuts it back and it continues to bloom. You're also seeing some wonderful steeple grass in the background. So I love to use some of the grasses frequently in arrangements. And you're seeing also little lime paniculata hydrangea, which is beautiful in bloom and then dries beautifully also. And I don't trim those blooms away until they look so ragged I don't want them there anymore, okay? And the next picture is just a little bit of a close-up of some of that. And there's so many different colors in this wonderful coneflower. I do highly, highly recommend it, okay? And in the next picture, I have a little fun doing 'tis the season to decorate with those pumpkins and those gourds. And I love it because it really expresses the fall season going right into Thanksgiving. And doing the little topiary things with the gourds is wonderful. I did this arrangement actually at my home, and it wound up being too heavy for me to bring in because I did it in a hypertufa container that I had outside, and it had moss all over it. Now that would not hold water, but I went to the greenhouse and picked from that area a plastic container that would hold the water and hold my oasis, because I did this in oasis, and put it inside that container. Okay, now let's go another close-up of that. This is a close-up, and I did use asters, the little purple asters, and the chrysanthemums. Some of the hydrangea that was beginning to dry. This is the paniculata, and the ornamental grasses. The Miscanthus sinensis, because it doesn't seed around as badly as some of the Miscanthus do. And the chasmanthium, which does seed around. I had intended to bring some fronds of that, and I forgot. It's wonderful. It's great, even in a lot of shade, but it definitely seeds, and it's not easy to get up when it seeds because it has taproots on it. So you gotta love that plant to have it. I love it, and I'll never be rid of it, okay? And that probably is okay. Now, come back to me for a minute, okay? Uh, Going through all of this, and I know it's a lot to digest as we go along, but I'm trying to encourage you to get out and do this sort of thing. So I'm going to try to bring something up, okay? Because these pumpkin stacks are fun. And you can do it with, look, you can do it with the large pumpkins also. But this is just simply stacked. You have to cut the stem, which is a little difficult, okay? You could do this if you wanted to. I didn't. If you cut well, it'll sit pretty well there. And the last one, I always like to leave the little stem coming up. Now, let me see. I hope you don't mind my turning around here, okay? Let's put this one over here. It's done in the same fashion. Now, so that you can see it better, I am going to bring this one up. Because, oh my goodness, fall is just, I don't know. I think that fall I may even enjoy more than I do spring. It's just such a beautiful season. And this is not difficult to make. This I did do with Oasis. I began this is a centerpiece, okay? I'm sitting low right now, but if I was sitting up at a table, you don't ever want a table centerpiece to be any taller. You want to be able to talk through it or over it to the person across from you. This isn't the state dinner in England where the tables are so wide and arrangements are so big in the center. You can't have no conversation with the person across from me anyway. But in our homes, you can. So you want to keep that down. So the first thing that I put in is to set the length and the width. This would be for a fairly large table, okay? And it has celosia, which is great, can be seeded into the garden also in early May when the ground is a little warm, or we sell plants too, okay? It will be killed by the first frost, but guess what? It dries beautifully. If you have it or you buy it here and you use it in your containers or in the garden just before frost is predicted, go out and cut it and remove the leaves and put several stems together and a rubber band around it, hang it over a coat hanger, and it dries incredibly well. Okay, so that's another one for the dry period, okay? It also contains a couple of different colors of the chrysanthemums. And this that I have used here as the foliage is Laura petalum, which is a beautiful shrub, this color all season, and Abelia, that's this color all season, and blooms off and on through the season. Okay, I'm gonna carefully put this back and bringing this up, I will show you that this is the oasis that's in this, okay? And there we go. Thank you, Danny. That thing went away. It wasn't away yet. Okay. Wet oasis, which I like to put a block into. But here's the top of that container. I like to always leave higher than that container so that when I push that stem in, I can reach it, okay? If I cut it off level with the top of that container, I couldn't be able to do that. So how I began that arrangement was by setting the length of it, the width of it, and then the height of it, and then fill in from there, okay? So it really is quite easy. And what kind of things do you use? I even went down into my collection of containers and found a really old little iron container. And this would be great fun. But this is another one where I would sit a container that holds the water inside of here because this would rust badly if I put, it's already rusted, if I put water into that. Okay. You can also use, if you choose, you could also use the wire in that. Okay. But that's a little more difficult, okay? And you could hurt your knees. Okay, let's come back and show you arranging. Just do it. This is Clara. She's 6. And she's arranging what we went out into the garden and cut. And she's doing her own thing. And the next picture is actually a little one that she finished. Now, I want to tell you, I did not do this arrangement. She did this all by herself. No, she's going to be 7 in November. Now, the next one is little Lydia. And she is working on her arrangement. And she's doing her own thing. And what it turned out to be is in the next picture. Lydia is 5, okay? This is Lydia's arrangement. And she did that all by herself. Okay, one final thing before we leave, just a few minutes for questions. Okay, roadside flowers? No, this is a wonderful late variety of Rebecca. And I just cut some grasses and I put it together just in my hand and in the proper container, which this is not. Just put it into your container. Just do it. All right, let's see what you thought of that, guys. And do you have any questions?
Thanks, Peg. All right, I've got questions for you. So we will get started. And just a quick reminder to anybody, if we don't get to your questions today, please feel free to send them in. We'll go until 1 o'clock. If you aren't able to get your question answered, then you're always welcome to follow up with us after the class, or you can come visit Peg in the store. First question, Peg. What is the best way to keep tulips from fading in color and dropping leaves?
Well, if they're going to fade in color and drop leaves, that's the nature of the beast. Okay. It's past its prime. Perhaps, number one, you need to pick it in early stages. Okay. Or if you're buying them in the store, you have no idea how old they are. But they're not going to drop their. Are they in the garden or an arrangement? I didn't.
It's not specified.
Okay.
I was
Well,
assuming
they're
in an
only
arrangement, but
okay, only going to drop their leaves when they're ready to be finished. Okay.
gotcha. Okay. Let's see here. Next question. Do you bring in okay, this is about when you bring the flowers in, when you cut them. Do
Right.
you bring them in when the blooms are open, when they're buds, or when they're halfway open?
Well, you might want some of each. Now, number one, I do love to, whenever possible, cut them in the early morning because they're hydrated, they're prime then. Sometimes I do it later because I need to. If you want, some of the buds won't fully open if they're too tight, but you may want that bud at the top of your arrangement, okay? Especially if you're doing a really loose arrangement. Half open is good. Depending upon the flower, you may want some of each. Okay.
Perfect. All right, next question. Okay, what's the name of the tape? Is that tape, is that just called floral tape?
It's a floral tape,
Okay.
yes. Okay. And there's different brands. I was trying to read what this says, but I can't.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I think we've always called it floral tape. I just want to make sure that's
Well,
actually
there's two
the
different
name.
types now. There's the floral tape that isn't like this, that we
Yes.
tape our wires with. This is different.
It's less, yeah, that stuff's less sticky.
This has the sticky back,
Yeah,
okay? It's totally, totally different. Now, it also comes in a somewhat transparent thing. So specify when you go or come in to buy it that that's what you're looking for, because this is a wonderful thing to work with, okay?
got it. Okay, so you want the sticky floral tape for this
Yeah, that's
specifically.
different. Yeah, what we often just call floral tape is different.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There's some Queen Anne's lace in my gardens. Is it considered a weed and is it worth to keep? I know you like to use it in cut arrangements. I guess this would be David's question is, do you consider it a
No,
weed?
no, 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 no. It's not just a David's question. Believe me, it's a me question.
You too. So he has this come up on virtual plant clinics all the time.
Okay, if you don't want it to go all over the place, then cut away those blossoms before they have time to drop the seeds, okay? I love it because I love to cut it, and because the birds, bees, and butterflies, the pollinators, absolutely love it also. Now, it is not the easiest thing to pull out. It's kind of like the chessmanthium, but I do if the soil is moist and you've got a little digger to get it out, that's fine. But if you love it and you can deal with it, keep it.
Perfect. That's what David in his plant clinic when he does lawn care, we always get two questions. And one is, how do I get rid of the violets? And the other question is, I love the violets. Can I buy them at the store? We always get them in the same class.
You
Um,
can, and there's a love-hate relationship with violets, and I share
yeah.
that.
All right. Next question. Can you reuse the oasis?
Depending upon how badly damaged it is, I will reuse this probably because oftentimes you can even turn it over if you let it dry out, okay? Depends upon how well it absorbs the water, okay?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. So if it's not too damaged, you can.
Right.
Um, oh, that's nice. We've always enjoyed watching your grandkids grow from your pictures. Yeah, it's kind of neat
Well,
to
I
see them
try
progress.
always to include the children because it's so, so important to include children. I was so pleased that a relatively young man came up to me after the class on Saturday because I have included the children planting bulbs in the garden. And he said to me, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was my grandfather that gave me this love." And so I felt so good about that because they're our tomorrow. Okay.
I love seeing those photos. All right, here's a question, and I'll kind of say because I have to address this periodically. It's awesome that we have people attending from all over. Can you break down featured materials by zone usability? So I'm going to hand this over to Peg, but first I'll say officially, since Merrifield's located in Northern Virginia, our area of expertise is Northern Virginia, which is mostly Zone 7. But our team members, if they have some knowledge outside, they're always happy to share, but we don't always know. So Peg, if you have any information kind of on the areas of the United States these flowers would grow in, that's great. If not, sometimes we know, sometimes we
Yeah,
don't.
well, right now, that would take a considerable amount of
Yeah,
time and research to answer and would be much easier. Let's say that there's somebody from Maine or somebody from California to go online and figure that out, okay? As far as the abelia and the hydrangeas, certainly into six and down. I'm not so sure how far in the flower. Well, yeah, I know southern Georgia. My mother grew beautiful hydrangeas, and she grew abelia. And in the northern part of Florida. So I do have a fair amount of knowledge with that. But to answer specifically, usually you can go online and there'll be things for your area. Okay. Most of the perennials are very good, certainly through zone six.
yeah, okay, perfect. This says, I found this, I live in Maryland, just found this class. Thank you for sharing. That's nice. Okay, where are we at? We have 5 minutes. Perfect. How can I cut and preserve cattail I bring in as many textured plants to my elementary kids at school. These would be perfect to include. Oh, that's nice. These would be perfect to include. Do you know about
Oh,
cattails?
cattails are fantastic. And there's some of the large grasses when you use the cattails with them in a big arrangement. I have on occasions put those in a large container by my front door. It's where you can use something big. You don't want to cut late, and it's beginning to be a little on the late side. Because there's if you ever had one explode in your house, you would be very unhappy, okay? Because it just would go everywhere. But one way you can prevent that is you can buy a spray can of paint called Crystal Clear Dresden Spray. As late as it is, you cut them and spray them carefully outside, not indoors. Spray them carefully with that, and that might keep them from popping. Otherwise, the safest time to cut them is earlier, would be early September. However, I would like to spray them even then because I have had them break indoors and it is not funny. Okay.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, next question. Do other bulb, I'm not familiar with this, but you probably are. Do other bulb flowers seep the way daffodils do?
Some, mostly, primarily, I'm thinking the daffodils certainly do. And normally people are not allergic to that. There are some things like euphorbia, rue, some other things that a lot of people are allergic to, and it's you need to wear gloves when you're handling it. But I've not ever heard of anybody reacting to the seepage from the narcissus, the daffodils. Okay, but the one reason you want to separate them and let them sort of bleed out, so to speak, for a couple of hours is because that does seep out is not good for the other flowers that you put in with it. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
here's our last question. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer this one without more info, but for cannas, she says, why do some of my cannas make it and some don't? Do you know if there's any common issues that would cause cannas the
Well, it's totally dependent upon where they're planted.
yeah.
Okay. Generally speaking, they will live over in this area, but not guaranteed. Okay. This is why I try to protect them. And last year, I lost two of my favorites because I left them in a ground where I knew better and didn't take care of it. The ground was too moist in the wintertime. If you have really well drained soil, the likelihood of getting things through the winter is greater than if you have an area where water or snow is going to sit in the winter time. This is why I learned, rather than having to dig them and bring them in, that if I put bags of mulch on top of the area where my colocasias, alocasias are, elephant ears, and my cannas, I will layer that on top of the ground. Now that's good insulation. I will pin the landscape fabric over that. Now, this is in an area that I don't see a lot in the wintertime. So if I saw a lot in the wintertime, I might mulch over that, but I do not open that mulch bag. And here's why. That is keeping that area from absorbing too much water. And they have a better tendency to go through the winter. So it depends upon where you planted those, whether or not it stays too moist or maybe it's too exposed. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Well,
So
that's
now
it for
before
questions, and
you
it's 12:59. So, uh, Peg is amazing. That was fabulous as always. Thank you. That's nice.
before
Thank
you
you.
go, remember now, was there any response from anybody that said this was a program that they found beneficial?
Yeah, well, we've had several comments that say, thank you, this was a great class. I've seen a few of them. So, anybody feel free to let us know. Okay, we have people saying, I agree. So, I had a feeling, yep, great. Thanks so much. Wonderful class.
That's good feedback.
That
It's
is
good
good. Yeah, because this is new. I,
feedback.
I personally enjoyed it. Um, all right. Well, Peg, thank you so much. Everybody looks like the consensus is it was a good class, Peg.
Okay, thank
All
you.
righty. Well, I will see you later, Peg. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll do some more of these in the future. I found this very informative. I thought it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Peg. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.